I wanted to do a Studio Ghibli tier list video, mostly because I've been watching all the all the films here, kind of leading up to Boy and the Heron, and just found myself having a lot of thoughts and kind of falling in love with a lot of them again for like different reasons than I did when I was younger. And I was gonna maybe write something, but I thought just doing a video would be quicker. Um, and yeah, we can start just with The Boy and the Heron because that's most fresh. I've seen this. I saw it twice in the theaters, and I thought it was, from the first viewing, I just was in love with this movie. I thought it was incredible. Um, yeah, but then I would get online and see some people kind of having more lukewarm takes on it. Um, but yeah, I guess some of the criticisms were like that didn't feel like it had a narrative core or something like that. That it was kind of confusing. Um, which I don't agree with. Um, I think it's kind of like a classic Alice in Wonderland type adventure. I mean, it's kind of similar to Spirited Away, and although it kind of merges the real world and fantasy world stuff a little bit more. Um, it also weirdly reminded me of Totoro a little bit in the mix of like fantasy and realism. Um, but I feel like even just viewing it from like with no metaphors and um, no like subtext, I guess, just like viewing it as a science fiction story, it still is pretty interesting. Um, yeah, basically just about an alien alien vessel that crashes to Earth and is a kind of a portal to a different dimension where like time and space are arranged differently, and yeah, and like a boy enters it, um, and meets his granduncle, who has become kind of like the steward of this realm or whatever. Um, and so yeah, even seeing it that way is kind of interesting. Like it, especially the scene where Mahito like walks through um, this like pathway to meet his granduncle. When that shot happened, it was very like, whoa, like this is more like sci-fi imagery almost than I'm used to with Ghibli films. Um, which I love. I just think, yeah, and visually it's incredible. Um, but I think it's also pretty clear that you can see it as like Miyazaki's kind of questioning if his like life and his legacy and all that had or what kind of effect it had. And the scene when the granduncle is like stacking the blocks, or telling Mahito to you need to stack the blocks um, as you see fit. That's kind of the clearest thematic center of the movie, I guess. Um, but yeah, it can. I mean, there's just so many ways you can you can view the narrative and view the film, all of which I think work and are kind of awesome to me. So yeah, I didn't think it was unclear at all, really. I guess I can understand that like some of the time jumps, or like some of the logic starts to get more loose once they enter the kind of the fantasy realm. But I took it, that's kind of the point of it, is that it's, time and space are like are behaving differently, and yeah, like he meets his mother as a child, and there's kind of like skips in logic, and I just think, I don't know, that's what I loved about it. And I think the criticism that that the film should have had a more, I guess, conventional or coherent narrative flow. To me, I just don't like that idea. I feel like it suggests that movies that have narratives are maybe like inherently superior to non-narrative films, which I don't think is the case. And even so, this was it was a pretty narratively solid film, nonetheless. So yeah, this is going, straight straight to S tier. It's been a while since I saw a movie where I was just like, this is one of my favorite movies I've seen, and I love this. It was instantly like one of my favorite Ghiblis, right away. The music also is beautiful. It's like a little bit more sparsely used. Yeah, there was one track. What was the track's name? Rain of Fire, with like this kind of the string stabs in the choir. I love that track. So yeah, definitely S tier. Let's see. We can go to Grave of the Fireflies next. I'll try to talk a little bit less about each one, so it's not so long-winded. But I think Grave of the Fireflies was the first Ghibli movie I saw, and yeah, it blew me away back then, and it still does now. Like, so I noted down this Roger Ebert quote about Grave of Fireflies that I'm just going to read here because I just really like this quote. He says, "It isn't the typical material of animation, but for Grave of the Fireflies, I think animation was the right choice. Live action would have been burdened by the weight of special effects, violence, and action. Animation allows Takahata to concentrate on the essence of the story, and the lack of visual realism in his animated characters allows our imagination more play. Freed from the literal fact of real actors, we can more easily merge the characters with our own associations. This film proves, if it needs proving, that animation produces emotional effects not by reproducing reality, but by heightening and simplifying it, so that many of the sequences are about ideas, not experiences." Yeah, there's just something about it being animated that, in a weird way, like lets you experience the kind of the emotion of the story, at least for me, in a more like, I don't know the word, maybe like a more contemplative way than like Saving Private Ryan or Schindler's List or movies like this. I also think it's interesting that I think I heard some interviews with Takahata where he was saying that he wanted to critique like the lead character Saita's kind of stubbornness in the film, which eventually leads to both the Saita and his sister dying. Basically, yeah, there was some intention to maybe critique that sort of mindset in like post-war Japan and stuff. But the audience, it just cried, basically. It was too emotionally affecting to get that message across. Yeah, because it's hard to like force narratives or force themes like over top of that because it's just sad. to see that. But yeah, an incredible movie. I've got to give that S tier also. My cat is going crazy. Okay, next is From Up on Poppy Hill. This was directed by Miyazaki's son, Goro. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah. But I believe it was written by Miyazaki, which you can kind of tell, because, we'll get to Earthsea and Earwig in a second here, which were the other Goro Miyazaki movies, but, From Up on Poppy Hill is definitely, in my opinion, his strongest, Goro's strongest film, kind of despite itself. I honestly think, it kind of pains me to say this, but I feel like the stuff where you can feel Goro's presence is where the movie feels the weakest to me. A lot of the musical cues just strike me as being kind of terrible and almost inappropriate, and just, I don't know, shifting the mood of the narrative in a way that I don't enjoy. There's a lot of, how to explain, there's just a lot of dun 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 dun, finale. There'll be these finality in some of the musical cues where it's just it's the scene is not exactly, doesn't exactly deserve this kind of finality that the cadence and resolution of these musical cues suggest. Yeah, so it just has a bunch of awkward montages and musical choices, in my opinion. But the script, when it is in just the characters' dialogue, and the story is kind of moving along with the characters, you kind of start to get sucked in, and then it will be interrupted at weird times, where you get kind of taken out of that. So, but overall, I did enjoy it. It's hard to kind of place on here. Maybe it's between B or C. I'll just put it here for now. Because there is a pretty wide divide, in my opinion, between these and From Up on Poppy Hill. Next, we have Pom Poko. This is another Takahata. And I think this is one of the least seen Ghibli movies, I think. But I really loved it. I was it was one I hadn't seen before until this recent viewing, but I thought it was on a filmmaking level was really joyous to me. It was the story itself is pretty bittersweet, and it's an interesting story because it doesn't really center on a main protagonist, really. It's more about this collective, or the group of tanuki, the shape-shifting the shape-shifting raccoons. I blanked on raccoons for a second. But yeah, and just the narrative flow, it's just very, it's just so different from most Western cartoons that we're used to seeing. And it's surprisingly funny and silly, but also kind of violent at times. The tanuki are kind of willing to give their lives to like protect their habitat and like willing to, you know, murder humans and stuff. There, particularly the end scene. There's a part at the end where their land has been kind of industrialized and like paved over and stuff, and I believe it's like a little short, kind of almost like a dream sequence where it shows the landscape like reverting to its natural state with like trees regrowing and stuff. And that scene alone is like one of the most emotional and affecting scenes in like probably any Ghibli movie. Partly because the song that plays there. What's this? The song is called "Undercurrent" by Hasso Gokudon, which I don't know if that person has written any other Ghibli music, but that song is it's like one of my favorites. And yeah, the whole ending scene, it's like I feel like I want to see a sequel to this film that's just about the tanuki trying to integrate into human life, because like the last 10 minutes or so of the movie is really interesting, seeing how some of them are like trying to stay in human form and just like and adapt to human life. But then one of the characters at the end kind of sees some raccoons who did not adapt to human life, and like despite their just like intense hardships, I think the film ends with them just like dancing and singing and like being joyous, and I thought that was just like a beautiful message to end on. So this is, I mean, it's hard to, I feel like I just have to keep stacking S tier because I mean, there's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of these that I really, really like. But yeah, moving on to Earwig. This is kind of universally loathed. This is like kind of seen as the worst of all the Ghibli, and it's again Goro Miyazaki, Hayao Miyazaki's son, and it's rough. It's like especially watching through all these films and then getting to Earwig, it's very rough. It's like, yeah, I could go on about. It makes me think about like why, like what makes a good film. Obviously, it's like we have consensus about what's good or not, and a lot of it is deeply just like down to your personal preference and your personal taste, or even just like the way you're feeling that day you watch it. But there's like a clumsiness and like a I don't know, like simplicity to this film that is not really in any other Ghibli movie. When I was watching it, I was like, if this was something my niece or nephew who were watching when they were like 5 years old, this would be like I would really appreciate this, and it would be really cool for really young kids to watch. But like, I don't know, next to like Pom Poko and Grave of the Fireflies and stuff, it's just yeah, it's not great. Definitely the kind of universally agreed upon like worst F tier Ghibli movie. And I would love to give a contrarian opinion or something, but I really can't. I have to agree with that. Um, yeah, and then moving to The Cat Returns, which is probably, I mean, I liked it more than Earwig and probably more than Earthsea, but I still really didn't love Cat Returns. I came out of it just feeling like, I think I was on a high from like maybe watching Porco Rosso and like a few other of these, and then I put on Cat Returns, and it just felt like something was lacking. I feel like I feel like I've read that it's like missing a whole second act, which I totally agree with. Like, it starts pretty good. I like the first, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes. But then it kind of just devolves into a instant climax or something. And it just doesn't have it just doesn't have the care and like the pacing that some of these others do, where it's like where it really lets you kind of live and breathe in the world it's setting up. Like, for instance, Whisper of the Heart does that incredibly well. Like, you're just, even just through the backgrounds and the environments and like the way that the main character in Whisper of the Heart interacts with her family and friends, like it's so absorbing. And like, yeah, and it's like one of the things I love about film, where it puts you in someone else's shoes. It's like a great vehicle for seeing different perspectives, and like Whisper of the Heart does that so well. And something like Cat Returns, it kind of does maybe in the first little bit, but ultimately it feels shallow to me. So yeah, I really don't like Cat Returns. Some of those character designs are cute though, but yeah, Whisper of the Heart, I think, is the most underrated Ghibli movie, I would say. It's very much like a kind of a slice of life film, but and it's hard to like explain its virtues. It's kind of like you just have to see it and be in the world that the movie creates to like really appreciate what it's doing. Yeah, but I mentioned the backgrounds, like all the interior paintings and like all the spaces and the way the characters like inhabit them are just beautiful to watch. Like, I love, a lot of times it's all the like the landscapes and like forestation and all that is seen as kind of the beautiful Ghibli background work. But I feel like the interior spaces in this are like on an equally beautiful level. Also, this has another one of my favorite Ghibli scenes when the two lead characters are performing the song together, and then I think like the kids, like relative and friends, like join in. That whole scene and like that song sequence is like, it's great. It's top tier Ghibli. So I think, again, I just have to I have to put it here. Earthsea, I had not seen this before this viewing, and I can honestly barely remember anything about it. I feel like it's just an extremely kind of forgettable one. Like, none of the themes or like really none of the imagery stuck with me. I want to say it's like the direction is bland. Like, it's just, and like the blocking, it's like, I don't know. It just, nothing stuck out. And something about maybe it's like something about the coloring too. A lot of the art seems like it's just trying to imitate Miyazaki, like Hayao Miyazaki's style, but just like a B version of it, like the third Aladdin sequel or something, like trying to mimic the first instance, but kind of coming up way short. I guess there's something to see in that sort of like brazen replica, but yeah, it's got to be F tier also. I mean, I considered putting it here because I do like it, I think, more than Earwig, but maybe I'll watch it again and decide later. But for now, there it is. When Marnie was there, this was... who was the director of this? I don't have it pulled up. I think it was Yonibayashi or something like that. Basically, I believe the director of this was... did Arrietty, When Marnie Was There, and... I don't know what else. Maybe just those two. And, yeah, it's pretty solid. It's like... similar to Arrietty, it feels like it's trying to appeal to Western audiences a little bit more. Even though there are some kind of jarring elements for like for Disney viewers, I guess, like the lead character can be a bit like cruel, or like spiteful, which I actually loved seeing that portrayed in this movie. And I kind of wish more kids' movies showed that kind of bite that like younger kids can have. Like they can, they can be mean and spiteful and stuff, and it's not represented that often in these kind of films. Kind of like in Boy and the Heron, when Mahito like hits himself with the rock. There's so little explanation of that scene, but it says so much and is like so relatable about like just the contradictory mental state that you sometimes enter as a kid, and like wanting other people to like see or view your suffering in like the way that you dictate. Anyway, yeah, When Marnie Was There was pretty good, but again, it's not... a lot of the imagery doesn't stick with me a ton. I think I would have to watch this again to really place it, but I think I enjoyed From Up on Poppy Hill, honestly, a little bit more, so I'm going to put it there. In Arrietty, I was really pleasantly surprised by Arrietty. I think I went into it assuming that it was gonna not be that great, but I ended up really enjoying it. I think, first of all, the big criticism I have for it is that I didn't like the music at all, like at all. I thought I thought the music placement was just... it just felt inappropriate to me. And I know it's such a highly subjective thing, but to me, like, for my taste, it just took me out of the film so often when one of the musical cues came in, especially like at the beginning. I just did not enjoy the music like whatsoever, but I kind of got swept along with it, particularly when the daughter and her father are like making their way up through the house. And I kept thinking how in other animated films, it's like they'd probably just be like bouncing around, and like maybe it would be like a more of like a silly sequence, but in this they really treat it with a certain like realism that I appreciated, where it's essentially like climbing. It's like this whole lengthy sequence of like essentially like climbing a mountain or something, or just like going through a really difficult obstacle, and kind of the gravity with they treated that scene kind of hooked me in, and it made me like really want to like the movie. So yeah, partly because my expectations were thwarted, and I liked it better than it like surprised me. I'm gonna put that on B tier because I did like it. Ocean Waves. This is another one that I feel like maybe one of the lesser seen Ghibli projects. I've read that this was some of the younger employees or animators or just people who worked at Ghibli wanted to make this, and I guess maybe Takahata and Miyazaki gave them the go ahead to like kind of make the film you want. And I really like this. I think the music in it is like a fantastic soundtrack. I really like the music. Has like a more of a late 80s, early 90s like Korg M1 synthesizer feel to some of the music. And I just appreciate the like kind of slice of life pace of the film. And like all the character interactions, it's the dynamic between the three leads is really interesting. I will say that I feel like it could have used another like 30 to 40 minutes of story. I feel like there was a whole. It felt like there was a whole chunk of the film that was missing, which like just a little more context between all the relationships in the film, I feel like was needed. And then if that had been there, this would have been like S tier to me. But as it is, I still really enjoyed this. So I'm putting it A tier. Yeah, Howl's Moving Castle. Wow, this is only the second Miyazaki movie we've talked about. Yeah, Howl's Moving Castle, I've gone back and forth on my thoughts on this probably more than any of the films here. And I know for a lot of people, like this is a lot of people that I know kind of entered the world of Ghibli through Howl's Moving Castle. And so it has that kind of nostalgic glow. And I saw this when I was pretty young. Probably when this came out, I saw it. And yeah, I was also like kind of swept up just in the world and the imagery, like the animation, like the way that the castle itself is animated is so awesome and beautiful. It almost looks, I don't know if there's CG being used, but yeah, I just love it. It kind of reminds me of Nausicaa when the ohms are moving, how there will be almost like flat panels moving against really complex, detailed backgrounds. I'm not explaining it well, but yeah, just the way the castle moved is like one of my favorite parts of the film. And I've seen this maybe 3 or 4 times over the years. And I used to really there was a point where I really disliked this movie actually because I felt like in the third act it kind of just fell apart. and some of the payoffs, like where the scarecrow is revealed to be like a prince, and like the war just like ends abruptly. It just felt it felt like Miyazaki had all these things he wanted to do, and like all these places he wanted to take the story, and like all these little pockets of the world that he wanted you to live in for a while. And in the end, it felt like some of those areas just didn't get enough time. Like you didn't spend enough time in them, particularly like dealing with the war and stuff. It just felt really thin. Like I just wanted more. And also, I forgot the lead character's name, but when she is like basically accepts the cast as like her kind of new chosen family, that it also feels a bit quick. Like emotionally, I didn't really feel like I was prepared for that bond to be so strong so quick. But yeah, more recently, I've come to appreciate Howl's Moving Castle a lot more. Really, because it just almost feels like Miyazaki is just like improvising a little bit. And I've read that he doesn't totally complete the scripts to the films before they start animating them, which I think is cool. Like I like that they can adjust and change and kind of move the story around on the fly, and I definitely feel some of that with Howl's Moving Castle. So yeah, I've just come to appreciate kind of the looseness of it. Tough. I think I'm gonna put it here. I might. That's tough. I might put it up here on another day, but let's just see where this goes. Ponyo. This is one where the animation, it's like I could just put this on silent and really love this movie. Yeah, it's definitely does feel more directed towards like younger kids, but I think it's very successful in what it's trying to do, and honestly, it's just so beautiful. Like all the water animation. I just feel like Miyazaki has this way of animating like water dripping off things, where it feels like almost like a gel pulling up, and I really appreciate and like that. So yeah, just for that aspect alone, I'll put this in B. The Wind Rises. Again, another really beautiful film. My most recent viewing of this, I was totally blown away by the sound effects in it, and I had to rewind multiple times because I kept thinking, like, are those human voices doing the like wind sounds and the train sounds and just like the environmental sounds? And I looked it up, and it definitely is. Like a lot of the sound effects in this are made with the human voice. And when I started noticing that, it was like I was so delighted. It was just so cool. Just hearing those almost like off-kilter sound effects, particularly I think, what is there like, yeah, when the earthquake hits, that whole segment is so good with the sound effects. And it's like kind of bizarre and even the way that the animation illustrates like the shockwave of the earthquake, where it's almost like this abstract red crack against like a black void background, and then it just shows like a rippling shockwave. Just the way that is animated is so cool. Um, and yeah, I think I really appreciate the love story in this too. I guess aside from like Porco Rosso, this is like the most adult oriented, as in like the main characters are adults in it. I guess Boy and the Heron and Mononoke are. I guess he has plenty of adult oriented stuff, but I just felt like the love story in this felt really unique and like special to me. And I know it's some of his parents are maybe reflected in these characters also. Um, hmm. Yeah, I'll put this A. I'll put that A. It's really good though. um, Kiki's Delivery Service. This used to be, I think, for a time, this was my favorite Ghibli. Um, just like, just kind of like a quintessential like slice of life. Um, like framing, even though it has like the fantastical witch elements and stuff. I think the most impactful part of this film is really about how Kiki like deals with kind of just like deals with her, I guess, depression, or just like the difficulty of dealing with other people. Essentially, it's like, how do you relate to other people when you have these like emotional turns that logically like you don't really understand. And so yeah, it's kind of like that teenage emergence of like these more complex feelings like jealousy and like having a crush on someone, but that being mixed with like an irritation or just like the feeling of wanting to be alone, switching to wanting to like needing to be in someone's presence. All these like hormonal changes, I feel like, are presented really delicately and really beautifully in Kiki's. And it has like a good climax too. A lot of sometimes a lot of Miyazaki's endings they have almost these like interesting like abrupt final scenes. I actually can't remember if Kiki's how abrupt the final scene is. It where the cats, where they're like sitting on the roof or something? I can't recall. But like the big climax of this, where she's riding through the town on her broom, is like very kind of like action packed and exciting compared to the rest of the film. Again, just a wonderful movie, I think. Porco Rosso. I also really like this one, particularly the scene where I know people have pointed this out a lot, but the scene where he's seeing all of his like wartime companions, kind of like drifting upwards, like the ghosts of the ships like above him or whatever, is such a sudden and like emotionally poignant scene. And yeah, I think like the kind of the core of this one is like that he sees himself like the pig aspect is like he sees himself as kind of this, I don't want to say like monster, but just like it's essentially like the guilt, like survivor's guilt, or like why am I still here when like my friends died in the war, and this kind of like the burden of a continued existence, and kind of like the futility of life after you've like come through a tragedy and like are living on the other side of it, and just like going through your daily life, and being struck with moments of like, why am I still here? Like I'm just doing these mundane things. Like shouldn't my life have more purpose or like more meaning after I've survived this? Like anyway, yeah, it's really good. I also wish it was a little bit longer too, or just like, or maybe that there was a few more sequences where they got a little more into like the politics of like the ending and stuff, but it's definitely up there. I'll put it here. Totoro, I mean, yeah, just the character design alone is unreal. Like Ghibli's mascot. I feel like also knowing that that Miyazaki's mother died of, I think, tuberculosis, like kind of paints this in a new light. It's almost a weird inverse of Boy and the Heron. Just had to pause there for a second. I feel like I'm kind of being too long-winded on these, but yeah, Totoro, what to say about it? It is kind of wild to think that, I think when these premiered, that they Totoro and Grave of the Fireflies were like premiered at the same time and were a double bill, and that's just like a crazy incredible double bill. Anyway, let's try to stop being so long-winded and move on here to Spirited Away. This is maybe like the most critically loved of the Ghibli movies, and yeah, the whole bathhouse sequence is like it's just like an insane piece of art. I love that whole sequence. I love the dynamic between, what is her name, Chihiro, and like all the characters in the bathhouse, and kind of the way that like the main protagonist is treated, and like the woman who's helping her. Just, yeah, all the stuff in the bathhouse is like top tier Ghibli. I think, talking about like narrative, I do think this is another case of like Miyazaki kind of just almost like improvising or running out of steam, or just like not really knowing how to end the film, maybe, because some of the revelation that I can't remember the names of the characters, but the revelation that the like water, or like, yeah, the water spirit, or like basically the secondary main character, I can't remember his name, but that he was like the lake spirit that essentially saved Chihiro's life when she was young. And so they have that connection. That kind of dropped like out of nowhere at the end. I don't even think on my first viewing I picked up on that um, narrative element. Um, but it's like just the imagery and the journey alone that she goes on is so like magical and just such great lasting imagery that it's like hard to really harp on any of these like narrative criticisms. Um, it is funny also, like this also has a really abrupt last scene, like where they're just in the car. I don't know, but I love it. Um, mm, it's like top of A tier. It's almost an S tier. That's tough. I don't know. Castle in the Sky. Um, to me, this is like kind of the quintessential Miyazaki like adventure. I feel like it kind of hits on all cylinders. Like, I guess I like the imagery and some of the imagery, like the bathhouse imagery and all like the spirits and stuff. I really like. I kind of prefer that over some of the imagery in Castle in the Sky. But the peaceful robot, or I guess they're not peaceful, but just the robot characters in Castle in the Sky, and like the whole sequence when the robot awakens, when it's like in captivity, and like it kind of just like destroys that what they're in, like a castle or whatever building they're in. That whole sequence is really incredible, and that leading into the final scenario where they're in the like floating island. It's just like a very narratively tight film in a way that some of the other Miyazaki movies are a bit looser, I guess you'd say, but this one just feels like really solid front to back, kind of like firing on all cylinders the whole way through. I'm I think I have to, yeah. I really love Castle in the Sky. Also, it has a really kind of clear cut villain in it too, which is kind of interesting. And I like how much of like a kind of a dirtbag the villain is. Princess Mononoke. So when I was watching this recently, like within the first 10 minutes, I had to pause it and just say like this is one of the best movies of all time. Like, I was blown away on this recent viewing. I think Miyazaki in general is like really good at his openings are fantastic. Like, he's really good at building this like forward momentum. I think Wind Rises has a great like forward momentum at the beginning, but nothing really does it like Mononoke. Yeah, just the way it like bursts into that like scene where they're where the demon spirit is like possessing the boar, and like Ashitaka's interaction with everyone from the village, like the young girl that there's kind of like some like a suggested romance between, and like how their village is like a matriarch, and when they have to send Ashitaka away, how it's like all the like elders, like all the old men are just kind of like so sorrowful. It's like, yeah, and then all that's happening within like the first 10-15 minutes or something. It's like they're packing so much into this film, and really that doesn't let up. Like, it's so thematically and just like narratively dense, without without feeling like overdone or overstuffed. It has like a complexity that you feel in like real life, but you rarely feel this like viscerally in film, I guess. Um, and of course that extends to like Lady Eboshi and the whole central conflict. Um, it's just so cool, and of course like the imagery. Um, to me, it's like the most iconic Ghibli imagery, like the spirit. What is or the deer god or I forgot what the like the huge spirit god entity at the end that's like looming over the forest and yeah, just absolutely top tier. Like this is probably my favorite Ghibli. Um, it's just so everything is so dialed in and like the sudden burst of violence and blood in this and you just really feel it and yeah, it's I mean beyond Ghibli I feel like this is probably one of my favorite like films ever, I would say. And I've seen it at different ages throughout my life, and it's like each time I get something new from it. And like each time it's like seeing it for the first time. It's such a deep and like layered movie, I think. My Neighbor the Yamadas. Again, maybe this is another of the less seen Ghibli movies. I hadn't seen it until this recent viewing. And it's like I would look at the poster art kind of, and it has this really simplistic style, almost like a comic strip style. That I was kind of like, yeah, that's not bad, but it wasn't like my thing, I guess. But seeing it moving in the film, like seeing the actual animation of this style, totally flipped that view. And within, the first 10-15 minutes, I really dialed into this and got what Takahata was trying to do. And I honestly think this has some of my favorite animation in all the Ghibli movies, because it's so stylized and it's such a different style than the usual Miyazaki look, and like the simplicity of some of the sequences, like the really sparse, almost like fading out of view background work, mixed with these like really expressive, minimal designs. I feel like you really have to just see the animation happening to appreciate the style they're going for. And narratively, the movie is set up in like little vignettes. It's just about a family, basically, in like very slice of life. But I appreciate that it focuses so much on the parents who are, past middle age. And I appreciate that it's kind of like exploring the life of these older people in a way that at least I don't see a ton, especially in animation, but just like in films in general. And how that they're kind of like, what's a word, like almost like clumsy, like buffoons or something like that. They're just not, they're not like heroic, like standard heroic characters. And it's like you really see their kind of dumb sides, which are sides that we all have, like in spades, the sides that like we're not proud of, where we just have like lapses of judgment or just say things we don't mean or act in petty ways. And this film approaches those characteristics and like those dynamics in a family in such like a thoughtful and in like caring way or something. Like it really, it's like or an endearing way. It's very endearing to these characters. Honestly, when I was watching it, I thought of another. There's this other anthology film called Paris Jetem, which is just a bunch of like shorts about, I think, centered in Paris. But the last part of that film, I think, is by like Alexander Payne, and it's just about like an older woman visiting Paris by herself, and just like kind of reflecting on. I think she's like single in it, but just like, yeah, just like reflecting on her life and kind of and how she's viewed like in society. And it just makes me think of like how, especially like when women get to that age, they're kind of relegated to or like cast off from a lot of like, I don't know how to say it, maybe like social importance, or like almost like media forgets about them, or like, or there's less and less stories that revolve around just like the daily lives of this segment of the population. But to have a story that treats these characters with like such care and love, I think is like a beautiful thing. And yeah, it's just like people never stop growing. They never stop feeling things, and I really just liked seeing the dynamic. Also, the scene where the husband and wife do like the tango dance is really funny. I think this is the funniest Ghibli movie. Like I laughed out loud more times, I think, than in any other. So yeah, this is going straight to S tier. I guess I don't know where to put it amongst these, but I really like that one. And same with Princess Kaguya. This is Takahata's last movie, and it's such a tightly wound, like incredible, I guess, fable, or like a fantasy story. I know it's based off of like a classic Japanese story. But yeah, the animation in this also is so expressive and loose in parts. I feel like it's kind of become a famous scene when Kaguya is like running through is it like the mansion or whatever that she's been put in, just like trying to escape all the expectations on her, and like the way that her parents, particularly like her father, is relying on her so much for like his own prosperity and stuff. And yeah, just a beautiful film. And I've heard a lot of people say that this is like the best, like the most intense and maybe like respectable Ghibli movie. And it is like, yeah, this is just as good as like any Kurosawa that I've seen. Like it's an incredible film. I had to stop and come back because my last recording got cut off before I finished these two. Well, Red Turtle I have not seen yet, so I need to see that. But picking up, yeah, we have Nausicaa, which I'm actually reading the comic or the manga of this now. which is I'd highly recommend it. Just seeing Miyazaki's like panel to panel still image work in that format is really cool. And it expands on the story so much. Like the movie only covers like the first bit of the manga, and it goes on, much longer. And the story is just it becomes much more like rich and like epic, I guess you'd say. But as for the film, this recent time watching it, I really saw it kind of as an extension of like older animation, like Fantastic Planet from the 70s, or like the art of Mobius, and basically all that like really cool earlier science fiction animation. And I was able to just see it so removed, I guess, from like the anime lexicon, and more as like a part of that sci-fi, almost like experimental film animation lineage. And yeah, seeing it that way just kind of was blowing my mind a little bit. Like, particularly this first segment of the film, where Nausicaa's like going through the toxic environment, like with all the spores and all the like the fungus and just all the backgrounds. It's like kind of remarkable. Like that opening segment is just, I really wanted to go through it just frame by frame, because I felt like each frame like was its own. God damn it. People are messaging me on Discord. Yeah, each frame was like its own beautiful piece of art. And I think I really like the character of Nausicaa herself. I feel like it's such a cool combination of like a nurturing character, almost full of this like unconditional love, but then at the same time she can be so full of like rage and violence. And yeah, it's almost this like kind of contradicting nature that I suspect that it's like kind of a bit of Miyazaki like putting his own nature into this character. That's just how it feels to me. And yeah, I will say that the ending is a bit abrupt. Maybe that's just from reading the manga, because you kind of know how far it extends. So like, if I was including the comic and the film and like the art books and basically like the whole Nausicaa world, this would be, right up there at the top. But I feel like the film alone maybe puts it here. But no, I don't know. No, I can't do that. I cannot do that. The animation itself, literally the first 20 minutes, it's by itself would be up here. Like, it's like seeing Mobius realized in a way that I never thought, I've never thought possible. Like, it's so cool, and it also makes me think of like these Eastern European like experimental animation films from like the 60s and 70s. It's just so in communication with like the history of animation and science fiction, really. I think it's like a really special film, I'd say. And then Only Yesterday, This is, I believe this is also Takahata. Um, I guess this is a more of like slice of life uh, picture. I think this and Whisper of the Heart to me share some like connective tissue in the kind of feelings they evoke. And yeah, the structure of Only Yesterday is it's basically a woman visiting the countryside, and she has memories of her past self, like kind of like impactful moments from her youth that kind of are informing the events of the current time in the film. Yeah, so like on the cover here, you could kind of like that's her older and past self, and I can't remember the character's name, but like her both versions of like her adult self and her child self are such like kind of distinct characters, and I feel like they're very well realized characters. Like I can really feel her personality has kind of like a distinct personality. There's just like it's extremely endearing. And so yeah, there's a few scenes in this that have just stuck in my mind since the first time I saw it. I think one was when her father slaps her when she's young. Just like relating to how traumatic and shocking something like that can be, and how it can inform a lot of your personality like years and years later without even realizing. And also the scene where they eat pineapple for the first time. Yeah, they get like a pineapple and are so excited about it, but they have to let it become ripe, and then it's finally good to eat or ready to eat, and they cut it up, and it doesn't taste good. Like it's maybe a bad pineapple or something. And so it's like this beautiful representation of like disappointment that I love seeing portrayed in a film like this. And then how, as a little kid, she like essentially tries to reject the disappointment by just like shoveling up in everyone else's pineapple that they don't want, and like getting sick from it. And it's that whole scene is almost, a lot of those childhood scenes are almost like their own little like short films, and just incredibly realized, and the way they play off of the adult narrative is really cool. And I appreciate in this film how a lot of the characters, like when they're driving in the car, they'll just let a conversation play out, even like a seemingly mundane conversation. They'll kind of linger on it and won't use as many cuts, and it all kind of comes to a head at the end, where she's trying to decide if she should stay in the countryside or go back to the city, and she gets on the train to leave, and like these specters of her past, like her childhood self and old friends from her childhood, kind of materialize and kind of push her to kind of make the decision that she maybe really wants to make, or has been not allowing herself to make. And I read it as kind of like coming to terms with your childhood or your past self, or like coming to terms with your own cringe or your own past embarrassments, or like your own past faults, where it's like it can be painful to look back or to dwell on the past. And so to me, seeing like the adult and childhood version at the end, like reconcile and like essentially meet for the first time, and essentially the childhood self like pushing the adult self forward was really resonant and and just incredibly beautiful, I thought. Yeah, I think that it's one of my favorite Ghibli endings. I just think it, like, as the credits roll, it really just nails that ending. So yeah, I've got to put it here. I've got to. Yeah, and also this one also. I mean, this and many others. Kind of just, I guess, to wrap up the video, the way that they kind of sit in the lineage of Japanese films, I feel like is really cool. And I mentioned this earlier, but I feel like a lot of people come to Ghibli movies through the lens of like Disney, as in like kind of saying like this is like Japan's Disney, and like I can see where that's coming from in a way. Like it is like the preeminent animation studio, like kind of geared towards kids or young people, but at the same time it's like continuing like this rich history of people like Otsu and Mizoguchi and Kurosawa, and basically just this style of Japanese filmmaking that you can see kind of being reflected and updated and just like kind of riffed on in a lot of these films. And to me, it's like part of the enjoyment of art is being able to make these connections between, like, through history basically, and like seeing the human endeavor as like as a whole, as in like we create things and pass them down and like update them and try to better ourselves and like better the world, and that process is like reflected through art too. And I think art can change mentalities, like it can change worldviews. And yeah, so seeing that kind of the lineage of where Ghibli stuff sits, and like the history of animation, like the history of film, history of Japanese film and storytelling, really, I think it enhances all these movies, except for Earwig. But yeah, and there's just it's just cool to be able to have all these at our disposal, like to kind of view whenever we want. And I just watched the Kurosawa movie Dreams, which is like one of, maybe was that I think it was Kurosawa's last movie. I watched that kind of recently and was like, man, this would be like a great Ghibli movie. Like I could just see it animated so perfectly, and that kind of got me on this train of thought also, where it's like, where yeah, there's just so much like richness to these films. Anyway, I've not seen The Red Turtle. I guess Lupin is not included on this Castle of Cagliostro because it's not, I guess, technically not Ghibli, but Lupin is also, a really influential and really cool film. It feels more 70s than probably any of these, which I like. I like seeing that side of Miyazaki. like when he's kind of still in this like studio mindset, or just like adapting an existing work and putting his own stamp on it. Yeah, I watched Lupin kind of after most of these, and it was interesting just comparing Miyazaki's like early style to where he's come with Boy and the Heron. I think in Boy and the Heron, it's almost like I feel more Takahata elements in Boy and the Heron. And I almost wonder if Miyazaki was like resisting some of that Takahata influence in some of his like mid-period films. But now that Takahata has died, it's like it's maybe bubbling up a little bit more. I could be off base with that, but yeah. Anyway, I would definitely, if you haven't seen Whisper of the Heart, I would definitely recommend that. Porco Rosso is worth seeing. I know a lot of people maybe haven't seen that one. Maybe like give Arrietty a second chance if you haven't seen it. Read the Nausicaa manga. Watch Yamadas. See Boy and the Heron in the theater while you still can.